This morning, Boeing 737 MAX 9 jets are all grounded, meaning hundreds of flights forced to be canceled as investigators are urgently trying to figure out why a big chunk of an Alaska Airlines plane tore off mid-flight. A huge hole and a ton of questions left behind. Some of the new details today. In the month before Friday's terrifying 20 minutes in the air, a pressurization warning light had gone off 3 times. That led Alaska Airlines to actually restrict the plane from flying over water on long-haul trips to ensure that it could return quickly to an airport if necessary. On Friday, passengers describe a violent explosion when the plane's door plug blew off shortly after takeoff from Portland, Oregon, and then headrests were torn off, extra oxygen masks were sheared off, some seats were even twisted from the force of the depressurization. One passenger says a child's shirt was ripped off from it. Thankfully, the 2 seats directly next to what became a massive hole were not occupied on this plane. Also this morning, a crucial piece of evidence has been recovered, the refrigerator-sized door plug found in someone's backyard in Portland. But another key piece of the investigation has been lost, the cockpit voice recording. The NTSB says it was completely overwritten.
We can learn a lot from that cockpit voice recorder. We have urged the FAA to extend the cockpit voice recorder time from 2 hours to 25 hours because we want to hear communications, noise, alerts on the flight deck, which may help us prevent future tragedies.
CNN's Mike Valerio is in Portland. CNN aviation correspondent Pete Muntean is in D.C. Pete, let's start with you. What's the latest on the investigation now?
Well, Kate, major developments here about this violent, explosive, and terrifying event. The NTSB has inspected the interior and the exterior of the plane, featuring that twisted and contorted seat metal from that 400-mile-per-hour rush of air through that refrigerator-sized opening in the left side of the fuselage. The big development, this is the smoking gun here. The piece that fell off of the plane has been found. NTSB Chair Jennifer Homendy rushed back to the podium last night to announce that. Found in the backyard of a Portland school teacher. We only know his first name. It is Bob. That part is known as a door plug, and it fills a spot on the plane where an optional door could be installed at the Boeing factory. Finding this is key, because it will hold some major clues. NTSB Chair Jennifer Homendy just told me. Was this a mechanical failure? Was this a manufacturing defect by Boeing or its contractors? That is the key, because this airplane is only months old. Took its first flight October 15th. Flew only 150 flights for Alaska Airlines. Investigators also now say a pressurization warning light came on in the plane 3 times before this incident, once just the day before it, and that caused Alaska to restrict this plane from long flights over water, like to Hawaii. Could have been an early warning, and it's something that investigators are probing but are still unclear about. Listen.
That alert that illuminated those 3 times certainly is very disconcerting to our investigators, and we want to look at that, but it may have absolutely nothing to do with what occurred in the cabin of the aircraft on that during that event.
What is missing from this investigation? The audio from the cockpit voice recorder. That was overwritten automatically. Homendy calls that very disappointing. There's been a push to make recorders retain information for even longer, 25 hours. Still a lot of info out there, though. During the depressurization, the cockpit door blew open. Investigators have been able to tell that. Also, that the pilot's headsets and checklists were thrown by the force of that depressurization. Alaska Airlines and United Airlines are the only 2 U.S. airlines operating these Boeing 737 MAX 9s. They are still grounded this morning, awaiting new details on inspections mandated by the FAA. United Airlines canceled 270 MAX 9 flights over the weekend, Kate.
I want to play for you. You talked about what we're normally talking about is the search for the black box, the cockpit voice and data recorders to go through that. One thing we know here is that the cockpit voice recorder, they basically have lost all of the usable material from it because of how it gets overwritten every 2 hours. For the control room, this is the second soundbite. Let me play what the chair of the NTSB said about this today, Miles.
We're disappointed that the cockpit voice recorder was overwritten. we can learn a lot from that cockpit voice recorder. We have urged the FAA to extend the cockpit voice recorder time from 2 hours to 25 hours because we want to hear communications, noise, alerts on the flight deck, which may help us prevent future tragedies.
Jennifer Hamady is not happy that this happened, that this went down this way. What could be on there that now is not, Miles?
Yeah, you've hit a pet peeve of mine as well, Kate. To me, in this day and age, it's kind of scandalous that we only capture the last 2 hours with digital data and hard drives, and we don't have looped tapes anymore. We could capture in excess of 24 hours as is recommended. And I'm going to take it one step further from the good chairperson and suggest once again that we have video cameras in the cockpits. The pilots union hates these ideas. They consider it an invasion of privacy, as they say. Well, I don't know about you, but when I'm at work, I don't consider that a private place. And if what you're doing can involve consequences which lead to the deaths of others, I think you might have to give up a little bit of your so-called privacy. It's high time that we improved the amount of data we got out of these cockpit voice recorders, including video. And for that matter, it should be streaming out of the aircraft in real time. But that's, you got me on my high horse.
All right, we certainly need to discuss this more. I'm joined now by airline analyst John Strickland. He's also the director of the air transport consulting firm JLS Consulting. Thank you so much for coming in and talking about this today. Look, so many of us fly. These 737s have been a problem in the past. They were grounded, I think, in 2019 for a year and a half after a couple of crashes involving the MAX 8 aircraft that killed 346 people. I mean, can you give us some sense of, is this a different incident? Is this something else wrong with the 737? Is this just a fluke? Or is there a major problem with these 737s?
Well, yes, you're right. The 737 MAX family, and at that time it was the MAX Series 8, which had the two tragic fatal crashes and resulted in that 18-month grounding. The 9 was not in service at that point, but it is another member of the same family. The incident of the fuselage panel, the blocked off optional emergency door that detached on the Alaska Airlines flight is something quite different to the cause of those two fatal crashes and the reason for the grounding. That was a piece of software used by the pilots on the flight deck, something called the MCAS system. It was something which had caused both those crashes and which had to be completely reworked before that aircraft was able to get back to being recertified as a safe aircraft for commercial operation. It also, of course, affected Boeing as a company, which lost an enormous amount of trust and confidence during that period, and they had to work hard to bring that back and rehabilitate the aircraft into service. So last week's incident, quite different. We don't know what caused it yet. I think as one of your reporters commented there, it's important this is also quite a new aircraft, only about 2 months off the production line. We wouldn't expect something like this to happen on any well-maintained aircraft, be it old or young, but certainly it's particularly surprising to get this news of a very new aircraft. I don't think it reflects a wider problem with the 737. The 737 itself, as a type, goes back to the 1960s. It's a tried and tested aircraft which has been modified, updated into far more advanced technology versions, such as the MAX that we're flying on today. It's delivered millions of hours of service, carried millions of people around the world, but that doesn't detract from the seriousness of this incident, and we need to get to the bottom of it as quickly as possible and keep that absolutely essential focus on safety.
Yeah, I mean, I've certainly, and I know my colleagues have certainly flown a lot of 737s in our lifetime with all the traveling that we do. I do want to ask you about something the Seattle Times reported, that according to the Alaskan Airlines, in the days before this particular incident, pilots had filed several reports of warning lights that indicated some sort of loss of cabin pressure and that the plane was restricted from long distance flight over water as a result. Should this plane have just been grounded, period?
Well, it's difficult to comment without knowing more than those facts. Yet we have heard that, and we heard from the lead there in your report from the accident investigation team. This is something of interest, of concern to them. There can be many warnings generated on flights every day to pilots. Largely, these are quite routine. Pilots are able to manage them. They are reported either directly by the pilots or more and more these days automatically through data systems from aircraft flight decks to the ground engineering maintenance control teams. It's difficult to say more than that as to what the significance of those pressurization warnings were. It seems potentially more than coincidental, but it could have been something very, very minor. It could have been something completely different. Pressurization embraces a lot of elements on an aircraft, but certainly that needs to be checked out, worked out as quickly as possible.
Absolutely. There's a lot of people, fear of flying is a real thing, and to see this is terrifying. John Strickland, thank you so much for giving us this analysis this morning. Appreciate you.